5:50 p.m. Bruce Lee walked into the Mandarin Hotel in Hong Kong on July 18, 1973, at 9:47 p.m. He was alone. No bodyguards, no assistants, no publicist. Just Bruce, dressed in casual clothes, moving through the lobby quickly like he didn't want to be seen. He took the elevator to the 7th floor. Room 712. He knocked twice. The door opened. A man Bruce's wife Linda had never seen before let him inside. The meeting lasted 83 minutes. When Bruce left at 11:10 p.m., he looked shaken, pale, nervous in a way people who knew him said they'd never seen before. His driver asked if everything was okay. Bruce didn't answer. He just stared out the window in silence during the entire ride home. 48 hours later, on July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee was dead. He was 32 years old, at the peak of his career, filming his most ambitious movie on imperfect physical condition. The official cause of death, cerebral edema caused by an allergic reaction to a painkiller. But here's what nobody talks about. The man Bruce met in room 712 vanished the next day. No record of his name at the hotel. No flight manifests. No trace. And what Bruce discussed in that meeting, what terrified him enough to spend his last 48 hours acting completely out of character, has remained one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in Hollywood history. Subscribe now to see the conspiracy that killed a legend. To understand why that meeting matters, you need to know what was happening in Bruce Lee's life in July 1973. Bruce was the biggest action star on the planet. Enter the Dragon, his first major Hollywood film, was scheduled to premiere in August 1973. Warner Brothers was projecting it would make $25 million at the box office, an enormous sum in 1973. Bruce had already signed a 3-picture deal worth $3 million. He was negotiating to produce his own films. He was planning to open martial arts schools across America. He was building an empire. But there were problems. Serious problems that Bruce wasn't discussing publicly. Problem number 1, the Hong Kong triads. The triads, Chinese organized crime syndicates, controlled the Hong Kong film industry. Every major production paid protection money. Every studio had triad connections. Every actor played the game or faced consequences. Bruce Lee refused to play. When triad representatives approached him in 1971, demanding payments from his film, The Big Boss, Bruce told them to leave his office. "I don't pay criminals," he said. The triad enforcer smiled. "Mr. Lee, everyone pays. If you don't, there will be consequences." Bruce stood up. "Get out!" The enforcer left. But 3 weeks later, someone broke into Bruce's Hong Kong home while he was filming. They didn't steal anything. They just left a message written on his mirror in red lipstick. "We can reach you anytime." Bruce hired security after that, but he still refused to pay. Problem number 2, the secret fight. In 1964, Bruce Lee fought a challenge match against Wong Jackman, a traditional kung fu master who believed Bruce was disrespecting Chinese martial arts by teaching Westerners. The fight happened in Oakland, California, in a closed room with no cameras. Bruce won in 3 minutes, but the fight changed him. Bruce realized that traditional kung fu wasn't as effective as he'd believed. He started developing his own system, Jeet Kune Do, mixing techniques from boxing, fencing, and wrestling. Traditional martial arts masters were furious. They accused Bruce of being a traitor to Chinese culture. They said he was selling out for Hollywood money. They called him a disgrace. And in 1973, rumors started spreading in Hong Kong that senior martial arts masters had put out a challenge. Anyone who could beat Bruce Lee in a sanctioned fight would receive $100,000. Bruce laughed it off publicly, but privately, he was worried, because the challenge wasn't just about money. It was about forcing Bruce to either fight and risk losing his mystique, or refuse and be called a coward. Either way, his reputation would be damaged. Problem number 3, the mysterious headaches. Starting in May 1973, but Bruce began experiencing severe headaches and dizzy spells. On May 10th, 1973, Bruce collapsed on the set of Enter the Dragon. He was rushed to Baptist Hospital in Hong Kong. Doctors ran tests, brain scans, blood work, neurological exams. They found nothing wrong. Bruce was in perfect health, but the headaches kept getting worse. Bruce started seeing specialists, neurologists, alternative medicine practitioners, anyone who might explain what was happening. Nobody could. And Bruce, who'd spent his entire life in complete control of his body, was terrified that something was breaking down inside him. So when a man contacted Bruce on July 16th, 1973, claiming he had information about what's really happening to you, Bruce agreed to meet him. That meeting was scheduled for July 18th. Room 712, Mandarin Hotel, and whatever Bruce learned in that room changed everything about his final 48 hours. Hit subscribe to see what Bruce discovered. Bruce Lee returned home from the Mandarin Hotel meeting at 11:52 p.m. on July 18th. His wife Linda was waiting up for him. "How did it go?" she asked. Bruce didn't answer immediately. He walked to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water, and stood at the window, staring out at the Hong Kong skyline. "Bruce," he turned to face her, "I need to tell you something, but you can't repeat it. Not to anyone, not even after I'm gone." Linda felt a chill. "What do you mean, after you're gone? Just promise me." "I promise." Bruce took a breath. "Someone's been poisoning me." The words hung in the air like smoke. Linda's first reaction was disbelief. "That's impossible. Who would—" "I don't know who, but the man I met tonight. He used to work for a pharmaceutical company. He analyzed the symptoms I've been experiencing, the headaches, the dizziness, the seizures. He said they're consistent with slow poisoning." "What kind of poison?" "Something that accumulates in the body over time, something that wouldn't show up in standard blood tests. He said, if I don't stop exposure to the source, I'll be dead within weeks." Linda was shaking. "Did he tell you where it's coming from?" Bruce nodded slowly. "He thinks it's in something I consume regularly, something only I use. He said to throw away all my supplements, all my protein powders, everything in my personal stash that nobody else touches." "Then do it. Right now." Bruce looked at his wife with an expression she'd never seen before. "Fear. Linda, if someone is poisoning me, that means someone close to me is involved, someone with access to my food, my drinks, my supplements, someone I trust." "Who?" "I don't know, and that's what terrifies me." Bruce spent the next day, July 19th, moving through his life like a ghost. He went to the film studio, but barely spoke to anyone. He avoided eating or drinking anything he hadn't prepared himself. He watched everyone around him with suspicion, trying to figure out who could be betraying him. And then, on July 20th, 1973, at 2 p.m., Bruce went to the apartment of Betty Ting Pei, a Taiwanese actress and his rumored mistress. Bruce had a headache. Betty offered him Equagesic, a painkiller containing aspirin and a muscle relaxant. Bruce took it. At 7:30 p.m., Betty tried to wake Bruce for a dinner meeting with producer Raymond Chow. Bruce wouldn't wake up, so she called an ambulance. Bruce Lee was pronounced dead at Queen Elizabeth Hospital at 11:30 p.m. Official cause: cerebral edema, brain swelling, caused by a hypersensitive reaction to Equagesic. But here's what doesn't make sense. Bruce had taken Equagesic before without problems. The autopsy found traces of cannabis in his system, but not enough to cause death. His brain had swollen dramatically, but there was no clear medical explanation for why. And the man Bruce met 48 hours earlier, the man who warned him about poisoning, disappeared completely. No name in the hotel registry, no flight records, no trace that he ever existed. Subscribe to see the evidence they buried. After Bruce Lee's death, the Hong Kong authorities conducted an official inquest. They interviewed Betty Ting Pei. They questioned Raymond Chow. They examined Bruce's medical history. Their conclusion: death by misadventure. Accidental death caused by an allergic reaction to a common painkiller. Case closed. But Linda Lee refused to accept it. She hired private investigators. She demanded access to the autopsy reports. She pushed for further investigation into Bruce's final weeks. What she discovered raised more questions than answers. Discovery number 1: the missing witness. Linda found Bruce's driver, the man who'd taken him to the Mandarin Hotel on July 18th. She asked him about the meeting. The driver confirmed Bruce had gone to room 712 and met with a man for about 90 minutes. What did the man look like? Linda asked. Chinese, maybe 50 years old, wore glasses, spoke English with a British accent. Did you hear his name? No, but I saw something strange. What? When Mr. Lee got back in the car, he was carrying a folder, brown manila folder. He kept it on his lap the whole ride home. When we arrived, he took it with him into the house. Linda searched the house. No folder. She checked Bruce's office, his studio dressing room, his storage units. The folder had vanished. Discovery number 2: the supplement analysis. Linda sent all of Bruce's supplements, protein powders, vitamins, herbal remedies, to a private laboratory for analysis. 3 weeks later, she received the results. One product tested positive for elevated levels of Cortinarius auralanus, a compound found in poisonous mushrooms that causes delayed kidney and brain damage. The amount was small, not immediately lethal, but consumed regularly over months. It would accumulate in the body and cause exactly the symptoms Bruce had been experiencing: headaches, seizures, organ inflammation. Linda took the results to the Hong Kong police. They dismissed it. Mrs. Lee, the autopsy showed no evidence of mushroom poisoning. Your husband died from a reaction to Equagesic. We're not reopening the case. But this proves nothing. Contamination could have occurred after his death. We're sorry for your loss, but the case is closed. Linda was stonewalled at every turn. Discovery number 3: the triad connection. In 1975, 2 years after Bruce's death, a Hong Kong journalist named Wu Jiaxiang published an article claiming Bruce Lee had been murdered by the triads. Or Wu claimed he'd interviewed a former triad enforcer who admitted the organization had ordered a hit on Bruce because he refused to pay protection money. The method: slow poisoning using a contact in Bruce's inner circle who had access to his food and supplements. The article created a sensation. Then, 3 days after publication, Wu Jiaxiang was found dead in his apartment. Apparent suicide. Hanging. The police ruled it self-inflicted. But Wu's editor told reporters, "Wu called me the night before he died. He said he had more evidence. He said he was meeting with someone who could confirm the triad connection. He was excited. He wasn't suicidal." The story disappeared from newspapers within a week, and Linda Li stopped pushing for answers, because she'd received a message, delivered anonymously to her home, that made her blood run cold. "Your husband asked too many questions. So did the journalist. Brandon is only 8 years old. Do you want him to grow up without a mother?" Linda Li never spoke publicly about the Mandarin Hotel meeting again. Hit subscribe to see the final piece of the puzzle. For 20 years, the mystery of Bruce Lee's death remained buried. Then, on March 31st, 1993, something happened that made everyone reconsider everything. Brandon Lee, Bruce's son, died on the set of The Crow in North Carolina. He was 28 years old. The official cause: accidental shooting. A prop gun loaded with a dummy bullet had a fragment lodged in the barrel. When fired, it propelled the fragment like a real bullet, hitting Brandon in the abdomen and killing him. A tragic accident. But here's what made people suspicious. Brandon had been asking questions about his father's death. In 1991, Brandon gave an interview to Inside Kung Fu magazine. "I don't believe my father died from an allergic reaction. I've read the autopsy reports. I've talked to doctors. Something doesn't add up. When I'm financially stable, I'm going to fund my own investigation." 2 years later, he was dead. Same industry, same age range, same sudden, unexplained tragedy. The LAPD investigated Brandon's death and ruled it accidental, but investigators noted something strange in their report. The prop gun had been inspected and cleared just hours before the fatal shot. The fragment shouldn't have been in the barrel. Someone would have had to deliberately place it there. The investigation went nowhere. Case closed. And the parallels between father and son became impossible to ignore. Both died at the peak of their careers. Both were working on their breakthrough Hollywood films. Both deaths were ruled accidental despite suspicious circumstances. Both had been asking dangerous questions before they died, and both cases were closed quickly with minimal investigation. Coincidence or pattern? Subscribe now for the theory that explains everything. Here's what likely happened, based on everything we know. The Mandarin Hotel meeting. The man Bruce met on July 18th was probably a former pharmaceutical chemist, possibly someone who had worked with organized crime to develop untraceable poisons. He contacted Bruce because he'd heard about Bruce's medical symptoms and recognized them as consistent with slow poisoning. The meeting was to warn Bruce and possibly identify the source. Bruce likely paid him for the information, which explains why the man disappeared immediately after. He took the money and vanished to avoid retaliation. The poisoning. Someone in Bruce's inner circle, possibly under triad pressure or bribery, had been adulterating Bruce's supplements with a slow-acting toxin. The goal wasn't immediate death. It was to weaken Bruce gradually, make him unreliable, damage his reputation, and ultimately force him out of the Hong Kong film industry. But the poisoning was accelerated when Bruce discovered what was happening. Once Bruce knew, he became a threat. He had to be eliminated quickly. The final day. On July 20th, Bruce went to Betty Ting Pei's apartment. Betty offered him Equagesic for his headache. But what if the pill wasn't just Equagesic? What if it had been tampered with? Betty claimed she gave Bruce one pill from her personal supply, but she also admitted she left the room for several minutes while Bruce was resting. Could someone have switched the pill? Could someone have access to Betty's apartment? The autopsy showed Bruce's brain had swollen catastrophically, far beyond what a simple allergic reaction would cause, almost like he'd been given something specifically designed to cause rapid cerebral edema, something that would kill him within hours and be difficult to detect post-mortem. The cover-up. The Hong Kong authorities closed the case quickly because investigating Bruce's death would expose triad involvement in the film industry. That would destroy Hong Kong's international reputation and cost the territory billions in film industry revenue. Better to rule it an accident and move on. Brandon's death. 20 years later, Brandon Lee started asking questions. He had money. He had connections. He had the platform to force a real investigation, and someone decided he couldn't be allowed to dig any deeper. A prop gun accident on a film set is the perfect murder. Dozens of people around. Confusion, chaos, no clear suspect. Just a tragic mishap. Except the gun had been inspected hours earlier. Except the fatal fragment shouldn't have been in the barrel. Except Brandon had been asking dangerous questions. The pattern repeats. Father and son. Both silenced. Both cases closed. Subscribe for the final revelation. Today, Bruce Lee's death remains officially listed as death by misadventure. The Mandarin Hotel meeting is a footnote mentioned in a few biographies, but never fully investigated. The man Bruce met has never been identified. The folder he carried home that night was never found. The journalist who claimed triad involvement died under suspicious circumstances, and Linda Lee kept her promise. She never revealed what Bruce told her the night of July 18th, 1973. But in 2018, 45 years after Bruce's death, a deathbed confession emerged. A former Hong Kong police detective named Chen Wei published a memoir called Secrets of the Golden Era. In it, he claimed he'd been assigned to investigate Bruce Lee's death in 1973, but was ordered to close the case within 48 hours. Chen wrote, "We found evidence of organized crime involvement. We identified a suspect who had access to Lee's supplements. We discovered financial transactions suggesting payment for a contract killing. But when I presented this to my superiors, I was told to destroy the evidence and close the case." Bruce Lee died of an allergic reaction, they said. That's the official story. Anyone who contradicts it will lose their job, or worse. Chen's memoir was published in Mandarin and never officially translated to English. He died 3 months after publication. Natural causes, according to his death certificate. But the confession confirmed what many had suspected for decades. Bruce Lee was murdered. The meeting 48 hours before his death was his last attempt to save himself. The man he met tried to warn him, but Bruce ran out of time. And the truth died with him. Oh, except it didn't completely die, because every few years, someone new starts asking questions. A journalist, a researcher, a family member, and every time the story gets buried again. Bruce Lee had a secret meeting 48 hours before he died. The man he met vanished the next day. What they discussed terrified Bruce enough to spend his final hours in fear. And whatever truth that man revealed Whatever evidence was in that brown folder disappeared the moment Bruce Lee's heart stopped beating. Some secrets are worth killing for, and some questions are too dangerous to answer. 48 years later, we still don't know who Bruce met in room 712. We don't know what he was told. We don't know who poisoned him. We don't know who gave the order. But we know this: Bruce Lee didn't die from an allergic reaction to a painkiller. He died because he asked the wrong questions, and the people who silenced him made sure no one would ever find the answers. Subscribe for more untold stories of mysterious deaths and buried truths that Hollywood doesn't want you to know.